You'll never feel like it. That's the truth no one tells you. The days you feel tired, the mornings when the bed pulls you back, the moments when excuses scream louder than your goals, those are the days that test your future. And if you wait for motivation to arrive, you'll keep waiting. That's why you must force yourself to be consistent, because success doesn't come to the most talented. It comes to the most disciplined. And discipline doesn't knock on your door, you build it. One uncomfortable step at a time. You'll never always feel motivated. And that's the trap most people fall into. They think success depends on waking up, energized, hyped, and ready to conquer the world. But real life doesn't work that way. Some days you're tired. Some days you're frustrated. Some days you feel like doing absolutely nothing. Consistency becomes a part of who you are. When you remove motivation from the equation and replace it with a non-negotiable standard, everything changes. You stop asking yourself if you feel like it and start telling yourself it's what needs to be done, period. That's what high performers understand. That's what successful people live by. They aren't always excited. They aren't always in the zone. They're superheroes. They're just committed. They don't rely on feelings to guide their actions. They rely on systems, routines, and standards. They build habits that run whether they're in the mood or not. That's the mindset that moves the needle in life. You think the athlete always wants to train? You think the writer always has a spark of creativity? You think the entrepreneur always wakes up with a fire in their chest? No. But they've trained themselves to act in the absence of feeling. They've trained themselves to stay consistent, even on the worst days. And that's the separator. That's what builds greatness. Not those random days when you feel a burst of energy, but the days when you're exhausted and still choose to show up. The days when everything feels like it's going wrong and you still stay on track. That's when you grow. That's when you gain the edge over everyone else who gave in to comfort. See, the world is full of talented people who never go anywhere because they're waiting to feel like it. They're waiting for the perfect mood, the ideal moment, the external push. But life doesn't reward the ones who wait. It rewards the ones who move. It rewards the ones who take action regardless of how they feel. You can't afford to be driven by temporary emotions. You must be driven by your deeper why, your reason, your vision, that thing inside you that says, I was made for more, that thing that doesn't care how tired you are, how bored you feel, or how hard things get. It just knows you're not stopping. When that inner drive becomes louder than your excuses, you don't need motivation. You become danger. You become consistent. You become unstoppable. You don't need to wait for a lightning bolt of energy. You create your own electricity by refusing to stop. And that power, it's inside you right now. But here's the challenge. You've got to fight for it. You've got to stop treating motivation like a friend who's always late. Start showing up without it. Start acting like the person you want to become, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable, because those moments when you override your feelings, those are the ones that reshape you. That's where discipline is born. And discipline is what takes you where motivation never will. When everyone else is waiting to feel ready, you'll already be 5 steps ahead because you chose consistency over comfort. That's not just strength, that's strategy. Desire is easy. Anybody can want something. Everybody has dreams. People want to be rich, successful, respected, healthy, admired, but there's nothing special about wanting. Wanting is passive, it's a wish, a thought, a fantasy. Desire is effortless because it costs you nothing. You can sit in your room, close your eyes, and imagine a better life. You can talk about what you want endlessly, but none of that moves the needle. None of that changes your reality. What separates the successful from the stuck is not how badly they want it, but how disciplined they are when it's time to get it. Discipline is doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. It's the choice to keep moving forward, even when your emotions tell you to stop. It's working on your goals when you're tired, when you're uninspired, when nobody's watching. Discipline is inconvenient. It's uncomfortable, but it's the only path to true progress. Desire might get you to the starting line, but only discipline will carry you through the race. Because the truth is, there will always be distractions. There will always be temptations to quit. There will always be something easier, more fun, more relaxing, calling your name. And in those moments, desire is weak. It whispers, maybe tomorrow. But discipline says, we go now. The people you admire didn't get there because they wanted it more than you. They got there because they were willing to do what most people won't. They sacrificed pleasure for progress. They pushed through pain. They didn't rely on motivation. They relied on discipline. They kept promises to themselves. They didn't back down when it got hard. They didn't look for shortcuts. They locked in. And that consistency, that grind, that day after day effort, that's what built their success. You see their results and think they're lucky or gifted. But behind that image is a mountain of effort. Reps no one saw, mornings no one clapped for, late nights filled with work and sacrifice. Discipline is the difference between dabbling and mastering. Anyone can start. Most people do, but very few stick it out when things get repetitive, when it's no longer exciting, when it's just hard work and no applause. That's when people drop out. That's when they say it's too much. That's when they tell themselves it's not meant to be. But if you want to win, if you want to become the person you were meant to be, you have to push through that wall. You have to embrace the grind. Because every time you act with discipline instead of giving into comfort, you take a step toward greatness. And here's the thing, discipline is not a personality trait. It's not something you're born with. It's built. It's a muscle. And like any muscle, it grows the more you use it. The more you choose to stick to the plan, the more you follow through, even when it's tough, the stronger your discipline becomes. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop letting your feelings decide your future. You develop a mindset that's rooted in action, not emotion. You develop resilience. You develop grit. And once that kicks in, things begin to shift. You stop being controlled by the ups and downs of how you feel and start being guided by who you're becoming. You can have all the potential in the world, but without discipline, you'll waste it. You can be talented, intelligent, and creative, but if you don't show up and put in the work, it won't matter. Talent gets defeated by effort when effort doesn't quit. Because the world doesn't reward ideas, it rewards execution. And execution takes discipline. You've got to show up over and over with focus and intensity. You've got to outlast the resistance, outwork the distractions, outgrow the old version of you that used to settle. You've got to want it enough to do the boring work, to practice, to study, to build brick by brick, even when you're tired of looking at bricks. People will say you're lucky when they see your results, but they'll never see the discipline that built them. They won't see the times you stayed in when others went out. The early mornings, the late nights, the weekends where you worked while they rested, but that's okay. You're not doing this for validation. You're doing this for transformation. You're doing this because the life you want doesn't come to the most excited. It comes to the most committed. Repetition is the quiet force behind every form of greatness. It's not glamorous, it's not flashy, and it rarely gets the attention it deserves. But it's the truth. Nothing remarkable is built without repetition. You don't become strong by lifting weights once. You don't become wise by reading one book. You don't become excellent at anything by doing it occasionally. Mastery is born in repetition. Progress lives in doing it again and again and again, long after the initial excitement fades. And that's what most people overlook. They chase the spark, but they run from the grind. They love the idea of change, but they hate the process of becoming. Repetition creates rhythm, and rhythm creates power. When you keep showing up, your actions stop feeling foreign. They start becoming natural. They become who you are. That's the secret to real growth. It's not about massive action one day and nothing the next. It's about consistent, repeated effort that rewires your habits, your mindset, your identity. The more you do something, the more fluent you become in it. Confidence comes from repetition. Skill comes from repetition. Results come from repetition. Yet people quit the moment the process gets boring. They think boredom means failure, but in reality, boredom is a sign that you're getting closer to something deeper. It's where transformation begins. When you do something often enough, you no longer have to think about it. It becomes automatic. That's how habits form. That's how momentum builds. In the beginning, it takes effort just to get moving. Everything feels heavy. You question yourself. You doubt whether it's working. But then, as the reps stack up, things begin to shift. The resistance gets quieter. The process starts to flow. Your identity starts to align with your actions. You're no longer someone who's trying, you become someone who does. That shift only happens through repetition. You can't think your way into change. You have to act your way into it over and over again. Every expert was once a beginner who repeated the basics long enough to become extraordinary. There's no shortcut around that. You can read all the books, watch all the videos, listen to all the advice, but until you do the work repeatedly, nothing changes. You don't grow by knowing, you grow by doing. Every small rep, every time you show up when you don't feel like it, adds a layer to your progress. You may not see the change immediately, but it's happening. Repetition works beneath the surface where no one can see it until one day they do. Suddenly you move with more confidence. You speak with more authority. You perform with more ease, but none of that is sudden. It's built from countless unseen moments of repetition. Most people underestimate the power of daily effort because it feels too simple. They want transformation to be dramatic. They want it to feel epic. But in truth, it's quiet. It's slow. It's repetitive. And that's what makes it powerful. Because anyone can do something once. Very few can repeat it long enough to create something real. That's where the real work is. That's where the real change happens. Not in the big, loud moments, but in the silent repetitions when no one's watching. When you show up tired, when you show up unsure, when you show up anyway. That's where champions are built, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows of routine. Repetition also sharpens your mental toughness. It builds a level of commitment that most people don't have. It teaches you how to endure, how to push through boredom, doubt, and fatigue, how to focus on the long game. When you repeat something every day, you stop chasing immediate results. You start playing for legacy. You begin to realize that progress isn't about intensity, it's about consistency. You start to appreciate the grind because you understand that every rep is a step closer to your goal. Even the hard ones, even the ones that feel like they don't count, they all matter because repetition is accumulation and accumulation is growth. It's not about doing something perfectly. It's about doing it consistently enough to get better. Perfection is a myth. Progress is real, and progress is built in repetition. You have to fall in love with the process. You have to be willing to do it wrong, to do it clumsily, to do it without applause, until you start doing it with precision and power, until one day what once felt hard now feels natural, what once felt distant now feels within reach. And it's all because you kept showing up, you kept repeating, you kept becoming, one rep at a time. Small, consistent actions are the secret weapon that most people ignore because they seem too simple to matter. Everyone is chasing the big breakthrough, the grand gesture, the life-changing event that flips everything overnight. But real change doesn't look like that. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks or deliver instant results. Real, lasting change is slow, deliberate, and often invisible. It starts with tiny, almost unnoticeable actions that compound over time. Brushing your teeth doesn't make a difference once, but do it every day and it saves your smile. Going to the gym one time won't transform your body, but doing it consistently will. The power isn't in the intensity, it's in the frequency. Most people fail not because they lack motivation or intelligence, but because they underestimate the impact of daily decisions. They think if it's not dramatic, it's not worth it. They don't realize that showing up for 10 minutes a day adds up. That reading one page a day becomes 30 books a year. That making a small improvement every week creates a massive transformation over a year. The compound effect is always at work, whether you recognize it or not. Every action is a vote for the person you're becoming. Every little effort counts, just not always immediately. And that's why so many people quit. They do the work, they don't see the instant reward, and they walk away not knowing they were inches from the breakthrough. Consistency creates momentum. The more you show up, the more natural it becomes. You stop overthinking and start executing. You stop talking yourself out of things and just do them. And as you build that rhythm, something powerful happens. You begin to trust yourself. You see yourself following through. You prove to yourself that you're reliable, that you're the kind of person who finishes what they start. That self-trust is fuel. It builds confidence, and confidence builds action. But it all starts with those small steps that seem too easy to matter. The things no one celebrates, the work no one claps for. That's where the transformation begins. Think of water dripping on a rock. One drop means nothing. But drop after drop, day after day, eventually carves a hole in stone. Not because the water is powerful, but because it's relentless. Your daily actions work the same way. One workout won't change you, but showing up every week does. One healthy meal won't transform your body, but eating right over months will. One focused hour won't create success, but building that habit every day will shift everything. The people who win aren't the ones who do it once. They're the ones who make it a part of their lifestyle. They don't wait for motivation or the perfect time. They do the small things daily, and they do them without excuse. You have to zoom out and play the long game. Stop asking what your results are after 1 week. Ask who you're becoming after 1 year. Stop trying to overhaul your life in a weekend. Start changing it brick by brick. When you commit to the process, the results become inevitable. Not overnight, but over time. Consistency compounds, and that compound effect is the most underrated force in personal growth. It doesn't look impressive at first. In fact, it can look like nothing is happening, but deep underneath, roots are forming, skills are developing, discipline is hardening. You're becoming someone different, and that change is permanent because it's earned. This is why it's so important to track progress in tiny ways, not for perfection, but for momentum. Progress creates pride, pride fuels motivation, motivation drives more action, and that cycle keeps growing. You start small, but you gain speed. You build habits, you become addicted to progress, and eventually what once felt like a grind becomes part of your identity. You're no longer forcing it, you're living it. And that shift is what separates people who dabble from people who dominate. The big success you dream of is waiting at the end of thousands of tiny, consistent actions. But you have to be patient. You have to believe in the process, even when it's quiet, even when no one sees you, even when you're not sure it's working. Because it is working. The reps are adding up. The effort is building strength. The consistency is carving a new version of you. It's just happening silently, like most powerful transformations do. And the day will come when people look at you and call it a miracle. They'll say you changed overnight, but you'll know better. You'll know it wasn't one big move. It was thousands of small ones done with discipline, done with faith, done with commitment over and over again. Emotions are powerful, but they're also unpredictable. They can lift you high or drag you low, often without warning. One moment you feel on top of the world, ready to conquer anything. The next you're stuck in doubt, exhaustion, or fear. And if you allow emotions to lead the way, your life becomes a roller coaster. One day you're all in, taking action, setting goals, building momentum. The next day you're frozen, paralyzed by overthinking, discouraged by failure, or tempted by distractions. This inconsistency is the silent killer of progress. It's not your dreams that are broken. It's your ability to follow through regardless of how you feel. The truth is, if you only work when you're motivated, you'll never build anything meaningful. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the wind. Some mornings it's there pushing you forward. Other days it's gone, leaving you to figure things out on your own. And this is where most people falter. They've trained themselves to move only when they feel good. But success doesn't care about your mood. It doesn't wait for your perfect energy. It shows up for the consistent, the ones who don't negotiate with their feelings, the ones who understand that commitment is a decision, not an emotion. Training yourself to act regardless of emotion is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. It means showing up tired. It means pushing through when you're uninspired. It means sticking to your routine even when your mind is full of excuses. And this isn't about ignoring your feelings. It's about not being controlled by them. It's about learning that emotions are feedback, not instructions. Just because you feel like quitting doesn't mean you should. Just because something feels uncomfortable doesn't mean it's wrong. Often that discomfort is a sign of growth. It means you're stepping out of your comfort zone and into your next level. People who master consistency aren't emotionally numb. They're emotionally disciplined. They feel the resistance, but they move anyway. They feel the fear, but they still show up. They don't wait for the right mood. They create it through action. That's the key. Action creates emotion, not the other way around. When you act, your brain catches up. You start to feel momentum. You start to feel confident. You start to feel proud. But if you sit and wait for the perfect emotional wave to carry you, you might wait forever. Emotional discipline isn't built overnight. It's built in moments when you make the hard choice, when you get out of bed instead of hitting snooze, when you hit the gym instead of skipping it, when you sit down to work instead of scrolling your phone. Every time you override your feelings with action, you strengthen your self-control, and that self-control becomes a superpower. Because now you're no longer a slave to emotion. You're not reactive, you're intentional. You make choices based on your goals, not your mood. That's where consistency is born. Not from feeling great every day, but from acting with purpose regardless of how you feel. This is what separates high performers from everyone else. It's not that they feel amazing all the time. It's that they know how to act even when they don't. They've trained themselves to detach action from emotion. And because of that, they make progress when others make excuses. They move forward when others freeze. They grow when others give up. It's not about being robotic. It's about being resilient. It's about knowing that your mission matters more than your momentary discomfort. It's about leading yourself even when it's hard. The more you practice this, the stronger you get. You start to realize that your feelings are temporary, but your decisions are permanent. You stop riding the emotional waves and start building a solid foundation. You stop giving up because things feel hard and start pushing through because they matter. And over time, this creates a version of you that's unstoppable, a version of you that shows up with discipline, clarity, and purpose no matter what life throws at you. It's not about ignoring your emotions. It's about leading them. It's about choosing to be consistent even when every part of you wants to quit. That's the kind of mental toughness that turns ordinary people into extraordinary achievers. Discipline isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, one decision at a time. It's the muscle behind every meaningful goal, the structure that keeps you standing when everything around you tries to knock you off course. Without discipline, even the strongest ambition fades. Even the clearest vision loses focus, because discipline is what holds you to your commitments. long after your motivation disappears. It's easy to start something, it's easy to make a plan, dream big, or set a goal. But the real challenge begins after the excitement wears off. That's when discipline steps in, not as a punishment, but as a promise to your future self. Most people wait to feel like doing something before they do it. They think discipline is about forcing themselves in a painful, joyless way. But true discipline isn't about suffering. It's about devotion. It's about choosing what you want most over what you want now. It's about being loyal to your purpose, even when it's inconvenient. And the people who understand that don't just practice discipline occasionally, they build a life around it. They turn their goals into systems. They stop relying on emotional bursts and start relying on solid routine. And they know that structure sets them free. When you have discipline, you don't waste energy deciding whether to act. You just act. Discipline is the bridge between intention and execution. You can dream all day about a better life. You can write down the most beautiful vision. But if you can't follow through daily, nothing changes. Dreams remain dreams. Discipline turns those dreams into plans and plans into action. It's the daily decision to stay aligned, to do the hard thing when it's easier to take the shortcut, to stick to your boundaries when distractions come knocking. And it's not always dramatic. Sometimes discipline is as simple as closing a tab, saying no to a craving, or sticking to a bedtime. But those small moments stack up. They create consistency. They shape identity. There will always be temptations, reasons to quit, distractions to chase, excuses to believe. And some of them will sound incredibly convincing. That's when you need discipline the most. When the world is offering you comfort, but your purpose is calling for sacrifice. When everything in you wants to slow down, but you know the pace you need to maintain. Discipline is the voice that reminds you why you started. It's the internal compass that keeps you facing forward. It's the daily armor that protects you from your own worst habits. Because the truth is, most of your battles won't be external, they'll be inside your mind. When you build discipline, you build trust with yourself. You become someone you can rely on, someone who doesn't break promises to themselves. And that self-trust is priceless. It feeds your confidence. It builds your reputation with yourself. Every time you follow through, you reinforce the belief that you are capable, committed, and worthy of the results you're chasing. That's how self-esteem grows, not from compliments or external validation, but from internal consistency. Discipline is how you show yourself love, not the soft, fleeting kind, the strong, anchored kind that says, I believe in who I'm becoming. The world often praises talent, charisma, or luck, but it's discipline that sustains success. Talent can give you a head start, but discipline will carry you to the finish line. Charisma can open a door, but discipline will keep it open. Luck might give you one opportunity, but discipline will make sure you're ready for it. It's the underrated force that's always working behind the scenes, holding everything together. And while it may not always feel exciting, it's always effective. It's the compound interest of personal growth, the daily deposit that multiplies over time. The most disciplined people don't necessarily have the easiest lives. In fact, they often carry more responsibility, more pressure, more expectations, but they also have more freedom. Because discipline gives you control. When you master discipline, you stop reacting to life and start designing it. You stop getting blown around by every emotion or impulse, and you start standing firm in who you are and what you want. That's real power, not the kind that's loud and flashy, but the kind that's quiet and unshakable. Discipline won't always be comfortable, but it will always be worth it. It's the steady force that turns effort into excellence and keeps you moving forward, even when the road gets tough. Distractions are everywhere, and in today's world, they're louder and more persistent than ever. From the moment you wake up, something is trying to steal your focus. Notifications, messages, endless scrolling, constant updates. It's easy to get caught in a loop where your attention is scattered, Your energy is drained, and your day slips away without you even realizing it. And that's exactly how consistency is destroyed. Not by failure, but by fragmentation. You're not failing because you can't do the work. You're failing because your attention is being pulled in 100 different directions. And if you want to be consistent, the first battle is to reclaim your focus. The people who win at life aren't necessarily the smartest or the most talented. They're the ones who know how to focus. They understand that concentration is a skill and they train it like a muscle. They eliminate what doesn't matter. They design their environment to support their goals, not sabotage them. They create rituals and boundaries to protect their time because they understand this simple truth. Your focus determines your future. What you give your attention to shapes who you become. And if your attention is scattered, your growth will be scattered too. You can't build anything meaningful if you're constantly distracted. Focus requires clarity. You need to know what matters most. Without a clear priority, everything feels urgent and nothing gets done. You spend your day reacting instead of creating. You chase quick dopamine hits instead of long-term progress. You start 100 things and finish none. But when you define your top priorities and give them your full attention, your efforts start to stack. You start to feel momentum. And that momentum fuels motivation. But it starts with the decision to tune out the noise, to say no more often, to simplify, to protect your energy like it's gold, because it is. Distractions aren't always obvious. Sometimes they wear the disguise of productivity. You tell yourself you're working, but really, you're just staying busy. You're doing the easy tasks, the low impact stuff, the things that don't really move you forward. And it feels good in the moment. It feels like progress, but it's not. It's procrastination dressed as real focus means doing the hard things, the deep work, the uncomfortable work, the work that actually matters. And that work requires presence. It requires intention. It requires discipline. That's why focus and consistency are so closely connected. One feeds the other. You don't need to do more. You need to do less, better. You need to strip away the unnecessary so you can go all in on what matters. You don't need more hours. You need more intentional hours. The kind where your phone is off, your mind is clear, and your energy is locked in. That kind of time is rare and powerful. 1 hour of deep focus can accomplish more than 5 hours of scattered effort. But to get there, you need to set the conditions. You need to design your day in a way that makes focus inevitable. That means scheduling your priorities, not just your tasks. That means building in silence, solitude, and space for deep thought. That means learning to be bored again, because in boredom, creativity and clarity are born. Focus is also about protecting your mental bandwidth. Every distraction you allow into your mind takes a toll. It might not seem like much, a quick scroll, a short reply, a pop-up alert, but those small interruptions add up. They fracture your attention. They increase stress. They reduce your ability to think deeply. And over time, they train your brain to live in a constant state of surface level stimulation. That's not where excellence lives. Excellence lives in depth, in stillness, in the space where you can truly connect with your purpose and your potential. You have to become intentional about your inputs. What you read, what you watch, who you listen to, all of it shapes your focus. If you're constantly feeding your mind with junk, don't be surprised when your thoughts feel chaotic. But if you start curating your inputs, if you feed your mind with inspiration, wisdom, and purpose, you'll notice your focus begin to sharpen. You'll start seeing opportunities instead of distraction. You'll start choosing growth over comfort. And with that shift in focus, consistency becomes easier because now your energy is aligned. Now your actions are moving in one direction. Now you're building something real. Focus is not about perfection. It's about awareness. It's about noticing when you've drifted and gently bringing yourself back. It's about forgiving the slip and starting again. The more you do that, the stronger your focus becomes. And the stronger your focus becomes, the more consistent your efforts will be. You don't need to eliminate every distraction in one day. You just need to start noticing them, start challenging them, Start replacing them with purpose. That's how you create a life of deep, powerful consistency, one focused moment at a time. Growth doesn't come from doing what's easy. It comes from doing what's necessary. And most of the time, what's necessary is uncomfortable. It forces you to stretch, to adapt, to confront your weaknesses and push past your limits. That's why people who grow the most are the ones who lean into the discomfort instead of avoiding it. They don't chase ease, they chase evolution. They understand that every uncomfortable situation is an invitation to rise, an opportunity to build resilience, a test of how bad they really want the results they say they want. Comfort zones are seductive because they feel safe, but they're also silent killers of potential. Nothing great ever grows in a place designed for convenience. Greatness grows in discomfort, in challenge, in struggle. When you build a habit of embracing discomfort, you train your mind to stop resisting growth. You teach yourself that pain is not the enemy, stagnation is, because every time you avoid discomfort, you reinforce weakness. But every time you step into it, you build strength. Whether it's waking up early, having a difficult conversation, pushing yourself in the gym, or staying focused when your mind wants to wander, it all comes down to how you respond to discomfort. The people who win in life are the ones who learn to sit with that tension and move forward anyway. They feel the burn and see it as progress. They experience resistance and recognize it as a sign they're heading in the right direction. Discomfort is where transformation happens. It's where the real lessons are learned. When everything is smooth, you don't have to evolve. You can coast, but coasting never leads to anything extraordinary. It's the struggle that makes you sharp, the grind that makes you grounded, the pressure that makes you powerful. And the more you expose yourself to controlled discomfort, the more capable you become. You start developing a mental edge. You start expecting resistance, and instead of backing down, you rise to meet it. You stop wishing things were easier and start becoming someone stronger. That shift changes everything. It turns obstacles into opportunities and pain into fuel. There's no shortcut to excellence. You can't outsmart the process. You have to go through it. And going through it means doing things that feel hard, awkward, scary, or frustrating. But on the other side of that is progress. On the other side is a version of you that didn't exist before. Every uncomfortable action you take builds a new layer of identity, a new layer of toughness, a new layer of discipline. And those layers add up. They form the foundation of unshakable confidence, not the kind of confidence that comes from words, but the kind that comes from experience, from knowing you've endured, survived, and grown. The moment you stop chasing comfort, your life begins to change. You stop making excuses. You stop waiting for the perfect time. You stop hiding behind distractions and start taking bold action. And at first it's messy. It's hard. You'll fail. You'll doubt yourself. You'll want to retreat. But if you stay with it, if you keep leaning into the discomfort, you'll discover strength you didn't know you had. You'll realize that fear isn't a stop sign, it's a compass. It's showing you where you need to go. And if you follow it consistently, you'll grow faster than you ever thought possible. You won't always feel ready. You won't always feel prepared. But readiness isn't a requirement for growth. Willingness is. You just have to be willing to take the step, willing to be seen trying, willing to fail in public, willing to feel the heat and stay in it. That's how champions are built, not in comfort, but in the decision to walk straight into the fire and trust that you'll come out stronger on the other side, because you will. You always do. The discomfort that feels unbearable today will become your new baseline tomorrow. That's how adaptation works. You grow into the challenges you face. You rise to the level of your standards. And if your standards are high enough, your capacity will stretch to meet them. The world rewards those who are willing to do what others avoid. Most people stay stuck because they can't handle being uncomfortable for long enough. They want the reward without the resistance. But that's not how life works. Everything worthwhile requires discomfort, whether it's building a business, healing a relationship, mastering a craft, or transforming your body. It all demands a price. That price is discomfort. And the more you're willing to pay it, the more doors you open, the more consistent your actions become. Because once you stop fearing discomfort, you start welcoming it. You stop hesitating and start executing. And that mindset shift is what separates average from extraordinary, excuses from execution, and regret from results. We live in a world that loves instant gratification. We're taught to expect quick rewards for minimal effort, and that mindset creeps into almost every area of life. But if you're serious about becoming consistent, you have to break free from the need for immediate feedback. The reality is that consistency doesn't come with instant results. It's not about seeing instant rewards or receiving validation every time you take action. It's about doing the work day in and day out without expecting immediate results. That's one of the hardest things to accept in a culture that thrives on quick fixes and overnight success stories. But if you want long-term progress, you must embrace delayed gratification. Delayed gratification is a fundamental principle of consistency. It's about understanding that the rewards will come, but they won't come today. They won't come in the next hour, the next day, or the next week. They may not even come in the next year. The work you're putting in now is an investment in the future, not a transaction for immediate pleasure. And that investment requires patience. It's easy to get discouraged when you don't see immediate feedback, when you put in hours of effort and don't get the recognition, the success, or the results you hoped for. That's when most people quit. They give up because the payoff isn't visible yet. They lose faith because they don't see the immediate returns they were hoping for. But the key to long-term consistency is believing in the process, even when the results aren't clear. It's about understanding that the work you're doing now will compound over time. This principle works in every area of life. When you're building a business, it's easy to get frustrated if you don't see immediate profits. When you're working on your fitness, it's hard to stay motivated when the changes are slow and the scale doesn't reflect the effort you've been putting in. When you're developing a skill, it's discouraging when you don't feel like you're improving quickly enough. But the truth is, the effort you're putting in today will eventually pay off. It's just that the results take time to catch up with your actions. That's why consistency is so powerful. It's the secret ingredient that turns small efforts into massive results. Each action you take today, no matter how small, is building momentum. It's adding up in ways you can't see right now, but the longer you stay the course, the more visible the results become. People often get distracted by the external rewards. They want the praise, the recognition, the success. But the real reward is internal. It's the knowledge that you're sticking to your path, that you're not giving up, even when the immediate results aren't showing. That's where the real growth happens. The process of building something, of working consistently, is what transforms you. It strengthens your character. It builds your resilience. It teaches you to keep going when the finish line is nowhere in sight. The reward is not the goal itself, but the person you become in the pursuit of it. And once you realize this, it becomes easier to stay consistent, even when the rewards aren't immediate. Delayed gratification is a muscle that you can train. At first, it's hard to resist the temptation to look for immediate feedback. You want to see the results right away. But as you continue to practice consistency and embrace the idea that results will come later, you build patience. You begin to trust the process more. You start to realize that the work you're doing today is part of a bigger picture. And the more you stay focused on the process rather than the outcome, the more you build the foundation for success. Over time, your commitment to consistency becomes a habit. It becomes ingrained in you. And the need for instant results fades away. You no longer feel the pressure to have everything right now. You're okay with taking things one step at a time, knowing that each step is getting you closer to where you want to be. When you accept that success doesn't happen overnight, You become more capable of navigating the ups and downs of the journey. So you stop seeing setbacks as failures and start seeing them as part of the process. You stop getting discouraged by delays because you understand that they are temporary. And you stop measuring your success by external factors like money, recognition, or praise because you realize that true success is measured by your commitment to the process and your ability to keep going when things get tough.